and it's a little bit more realistic. And it was really nice in the team pass period and stuff to have an O-line and D-line. We've been doing all 7-on-7, but when we have pads on, we rarely do 7-on-7, so that was nicer.
To read too much into the first passing through the deep ball to James, is that something he's worked on, just like obviously with the knee, but like is there more to it rather than just stepping into the throw and testing the knee out?
Yeah, it's getting it versus the right coverage and making the right read. And we run that play a lot, but you got it versus the right coverage today. And he made the right read, which is where it starts. We had the right pocket, so he had time to see it. And then you got to throw it right, and he did throw it right. So have a lot more. I mean, he can throw it pretty well, so he's always done that. But the harder parts are seeing it, getting it to it in time, and he did, and it was a hell of a play.
There was a moment where D4 got in the backfield, kind of fell down near Jimmy's legs. What goes through your mind as a coach seeing that, and obviously, Jimmy recovering from that ACL? Like what goes through your mind in that?
The good thing is I keep my eyes downfield, so I'm not sure what you're talking about yet. But I'll see it on tape, and it'll probably bother me. And then when something's wrong and you want guys to stay away and stuff, then you always show it in front of here and we try to address it. But I'm looking down here when the quarterback's here, so I'm not really seeing him. And the only time I look there is when I'm wondering why the ball isn't out. So if it's getting out, I rarely see him in a play.
It seemed like it was a good day from a number of receivers. Just a lot of guys have talked about gaining more comfortability within the system the more time they spend. Are you seeing that early on in camp?
It's still early. I thought maybe they took a little bit of a step forward today, but nothing to get real excited about. It's a long camp, and I want these guys to keep getting better. It was nice to have the pads out today, get a little bit more physical, was able to do one-on-one and things like that, so that was fun. But we got some young guys in that group, and we're going to ride them hard, and I expect them, they're going to have some ups and downs in this camp, but the pressure's on them, and I want it to be because they have the ability, and we need them all to step up.
How much better health-wise does Trent Taylor look to you this year as opposed to last year?
Much better. I mean, he had an off season, and we were real excited about Trent the first year, and he battled all the second year and just never got back to where it worries you. But we knew what he was, and it was really nice when he came back from his time away, his 4 months away, that we saw it right away. He kept that going throughout OTAs, staying healthy, and 40 days later he came back even better. So we're excited about Trent.
What was your verdict on the Jalen Hurd fights from yesterday?
Verdict in like who was right and who was wrong. Well, we fought, so everyone's wrong. It was, you never know till you get and watch the tape. It was a good teaching moment. I'm kind of glad it happened because we were allowed to cover a lot of stuff that I hadn't covered this camp yet, that the older guys have heard, but the new guys haven't. So it led to a lot of good teaching points in our meeting today. But for the beginning part of it, I was proud of how Jalen handled himself. That's why we brought him here. We wanted him to be physical. We want him to irritate the heck out of every player in that secondary, and I hope he pisses people off, and I hope a lot of guys throw punches at him. And that's what happened. And I looked hard to see if he was doing anything cheap in the play. Didn't see it on tape, but someone took a shot at him, and then that's where I got upset with Jalen because he's going to piss a lot of people off, and I hope a lot of people take shots at him, and I hope he sits there with his helmet on and smiles at them and waves to them as they get ejected and gets us a free 15 yards. But he failed in that yesterday. He got the guy irritated enough to lose his composure. The guy hit him, and then he fought back. So we lost both of them for the game, and we had offsetting penalties, so he didn't help us. But that was a good thing to point out that we want physical guys. We want people to get after it and compete. We want them on the tip of fighting. But football's not fighting. Football is football. You get as close as you can to fighting, and then you remember it's football, and the play's over, and you go back to the huddle. And if you don't, it's a selfish act, and it's fake toughness to me. All you're doing is hurting the team. And Jalen's a tough dude, and I think he'll be real good at this going forward.
Did his blocking jump out at you at Baylor when you were scouting him before the draft?
A little. Don't look much at blocking for receivers. Watch how they catch the ball and how they run, and are they scared to hit, and do they have the size? And if they're not scared and they have the size, then it's just about asking them to do it and demanding they do it, and they usually can do it. So being a running back, being a physical player, and then the effort he showed these last 2 days, I think it'll be one of his huge strengths.
Any message by sending him out there the first 11 on 11 reps with the first snaps?
I didn't even notice. Wes did that. Depends on what the play was and stuff, so I'm not sure.
Are you guys limiting any of the guys coming back off injuries in these padded practices?
Yeah, we are. I mean, we're eliminating a lot of the team and how we're changing our reps each day, so it's a little different. You know, in the past, we've had some different reps and practice days for the players over 30. That won't be as drastic it has been in the years past because of how we're balancing our practices out. But today we did the first one with Staley. The guy's over 30. He's always trying to get the third day in a row off when we have a block of 4. So we did that with him today, and we'll play it by each block. You know, we kind of get 4 practices, and we get a day off, then we get 4 practices again. We do that 3 times before we play Dallas, so we'll evaluate on our day off who we want to do that with on the next block.
What's the prognosis on Joshua Garnett? You mentioned he had a dislocated finger yesterday.
Yeah, no prognosis yet. The doctor is here today. He's probably meeting with him as we speak, but we should have one this afternoon.
With your running back group, as you try to evaluate that, how much are you kind of trying to identify roles for each guy, or is it more just trying to develop a pecking order of?
It's more a pecking order, just let it play out. You know, I think we got a pretty good feel for all the guys. You know, we kind of have an idea what they can do. Not many of them are new. You know, except for Walter, you know, just with us being with Tevin in Atlanta, so he's not new to us, and we're excited to get Jet back and work him in. We got to work with him a ton last year, so we got an idea of what he can do too. That'll be more about getting him healthy, but no, we just want those guys repping. Right now, we don't really care what the play is. It's just, I don't even know who's in. Bobby just rolls them in every play, and we want them to compete, and hopefully it sorts itself out, and if it doesn't, they're going to make me have to make a very tough decision.
From what you already know about them, are they complementary in ways?
Yeah, definitely. They're definitely not all the same. You know, there's not any of them who can't catch a pass. All of them can catch and all of them can run. But there's some guys who can run routes better than others. There's some guys who can carry the load better than others. But there's not one of them is just pigeonholed into he can only do this.
Do you have a plan for McKenna as far as when you expect to activate it?
No, we'll look at it on our off day and where he's at. You know, I think we will. I would think we would get him off PUP sooner than later. That doesn't mean you guys are going to see him right out of practice right away. You know, I'd like to get him off. When you get guys off PUP, then they can go and walk through. They can do individual and stuff like that. So I'd like to do it sooner than later.
Could it be Thursday?
It could be. It could be any day. But yeah, it could be. What's today?
Today's Monday.
Oh.
Meaning the day.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, that'd be more likely. More likely Thursday than Tuesday.
I was hoping that you could outline some of the benefits of having a bigger guy like Jordan Matthews in the slot as opposed to, you know, stereotypically the smaller, quicker guys that you have there.
Yeah, it's just you really want all shapes and sizes and different traits. I mean, I love big guys, but I like good receivers. So I think that's the hardest thing that people always talk about. Like, you can't just go order a big guy. You try to get the best receivers possible, and you'd like quick guys who can separate. You want guys who can blow the top off, who are faster than everyone. If you do have a big guy who might not be able to do that stuff as well, because he is big, he can make an impact in blocking, not having to be as open because he can big body some of these little little DBs. And sometimes when it gets tighter in the red zone and stuff, it's just a bigger target for the quarterback. Not necessarily with jump balls and things like that, but just throwing over defenders and then not sailing over the receiver on the next window. So having some more size out there does help, because all the receivers we had tended to be on the smaller side. Getting Jordan, adding Jalen, even someone like Debo. I mean, I don't necessarily look at just you have to be 6'4" to be a big receiver. I think it's a lot more how your body's built. You have to have a certain thickness to you, and everyone holds in this league. And some games, it's definitely not consistent in how they call it. And I think it's very tough when they're holding a ton, and it's a game where they're deciding not to call it. I think it can be very hard for lighter guys to get away from people, because you don't want to coach people to push off, but you got to be able to not let that affect you, and bigger guys are easier with that.
This decision is probably a long ways away, but when do you start thinking about roster construction in terms of keeping 2 or 3 quarterbacks? And are you having sort of a really broad view of the numbers you'd like to have at certain positions? When is that process going to start to unfold?
It's always in the back of my head. It's always in John's head. It's something we're always kind of talking about. I mean, you talk about that every time you look at a draft pick, every time you look at a free agent. Every time a guy goes down, all right, who do we need to bring in just to get through practice? And when you do that, you got to let a guy go. So is that a guy who has to see? you have to weigh that in every decision you make because you need 90 guys to get through camp, but you also only 53 guys are going to be on a roster. So it's confusing, but there's never a time you're not thinking about it.
I assume you're like Garland, okay, from your time in Atlanta since he's back with you. What have your impressions of him been since he got here, and do you feel comfortable if he does have to start a game or two?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's why we brought him here. He's played in a lot of games, a lot of big games. He started out his career as a defensive lineman on practice squad. We got him. I didn't know him very well. I forget who brought him to Atlanta, but they brought him from Denver. Got to know him there. I believe he was on our practice squad right away. Ended up making our team, playing a little bit. He got to play a ton in the Super Bowl. I mean, people know Alex Mack played that game with a broken leg, and he only could do it to about the third quarter. So he was in there the whole second half, and so he's got a lot of playing time. He can play at center, which we know we have an issue with Richburg on PUP for a little bit, and he also can play guard too. So to have him available is very important. That we got in a guy who had the versatility to play all three.
Play today where Jimmy has scrambled up the middle. Is your message to him going to be different this year as far as scrambling out of the pocket? Do you want to do less, given the injury?
No, I want him to do more, but I want him to get down. I mean, you don't tell a guy. I mean, we never just look to scramble. That's why we got a throwing quarterback who looks down the field and tries to get the ball to people. But you never tell a guy not to scramble because the other option is just sit there and get hit. So if no one's open and no one's sacking you, I loved what I saw today because no one was open. The seas parted, and he turned it into a draw. And that was an exciting play. He got 15 yards, and then I think he fake slid, but hopefully that'll be real in the game. But that's tough when it's man coverage. When it's man coverage, no one's looking at the quarterback. Everyone disperses, covering the receivers. Who's left in the middle? And if you have a quarterback who will run when the time presents itself, it hurts the defense.
I think he's more open to listening to you tell him to get down?
Yes, I do. I do, definitely.
A lot has been made about Ahkello Witherspoon and his ups and downs. Have you seen a difference with how he has approached this offseason and training camp?
Yeah, I do. I think I enjoy Ahkello. I think he's gotten better the whole time he's been here, and I think he came back. He's been through a lot of ups and downs in his first 2 years, and I think he's trying to get after it this year. We're 3 practices in, so it's early, but I've been real impressed with how Ahkello came back with his time away and how he's attacked these 3 days.
McGlinchey was talking about he was, I guess, somewhat in awe, at times last year.
Who was?
McGlinchey.
Yeah.
And it's Khalil Mack or whoever it was he had to face. He seems like a very mature guy. Do you see him having matured or taken the next step as far as I belong here or not?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it was the first day of the pads, but McGlinchey is, I joked the first time I met him when he came in a room, and that guy, I think he acted like a CEO of a company, like the first time he walked in. Like, it's exactly how Matt Ryan acts. And they're cousins, so I'm sure that has to do with it. But McGlinchey is very mature until you hang out with him outside the football office. But he comes off very mature, and he knows the right thing to say. He knows how to handle himself, and he knows how to act like a pro. And you get thrown into it your rookie year, and you battle through a lot, and there's a lot of ups and downs. And he's a guy who's very conscientious. He's very smart. And he's very hard on himself, so he's always working at it, and every day he's a guy. It's easy to get on him hard because you can, and he's not going to get sensitive. You can tell him he looked bad today, and he'll get pissed off, but he's going to come back tomorrow and try to prove you wrong. And if you don't have that type of mentality, then you always have a sophomore slump, and I don't see that being in him, and it better not.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.